India is going through a transition from colonial state system to a post-colonial state system. The parliamentary democracy, multi-party system, they all came from above. But we had a backbone to this whole process, an overall monitor and moderator and motivator of the process called Indian National Congress, which was born out of this togetherness of mobilizational and electoral strategies. Now Congress is a power machine. There are other parties with difference, but because of our coalition politics, they also became partners in power. So most of them have also become partly power machines. And democracy in India needs a new wave of reforms. There is a great consensus. In my country, there are 6 major reports which have been submitted between 1974 and last year about needed political reforms. Some of them have been implemented to make the elections a little better, but they have proved to be counterproductive. What we have to be preserved, you look around the post-colonial world, and India emerges out as the only country which was consistently parliamentary democracy country, but for those 19 dark, unfortunate months, and for which the guilty were punished very severely by the voters. Then there are others. For example, the victims of the caste system. They are very afraid that when we talk about change in the system, what will happen to the reservation or affirmative action, which is at the moment there for the weaker sections. Women are saying that, good, bad or worse, we want participation in the present system itself. Your participatory democracy is a good idea, but too far away. So then the minorities, they say, my God, in negotiating changes, will you dilute the protection which is there because of the Nehruvian commitment for secularism for the minorities? So we have to talk very carefully, because the idea of change is received very well by those who are in the safe zone, properly represented. But those who are in the unsafe zone, the weaker sections, the women, the minorities, they become alarmed. But it needs change, and we are calling it decentralization, and we are calling it Swaraj, meaning that most of the affairs must be dealt by the village government and the city government. We are calling it Jila Sarkar and Gaon Sarkar. Then larger issues requiring more connectivity between the districts and villages and the cities, state government, which is fairly stable now. But many more powers must be brought in from the central government to the state governments, provincial governments, more federalization. And then of course the central government with transparency and accountability, cleanliness. So the electoral reform, political reform is the entry point of Aam Aadmi Party. But then we were told that you are all very naive. Political system is reflection of the economic system, corporate powers, global players. We know all this. And this is why we are inviting people to come together to help us in making practical ideas. India is a land of continuity and change. Now the committees. The committees are a combination of people who have learned from the grassroots as well as who have learned from the textbooks. We need both. We cannot be dismissive of the hard realities of a bank manager or a cooperative secretary, and we cannot ignore the suggestions coming from the Amartya Sens and Jagdish Bhagwatis and others. So we have to maintain some continuity, but we have to have many major systemic changes, because we know that, personally we know that they were very good people before they went to parliament. In this discussion, we have to underline the value of power of vote. We do know that most of the vote is getting polluted, but still we have to have trust in the capacity of the common men and women to take right decisions at the right time, and which they have done in last 65 years on critical moments. Every election has not been a great election, but many of the elections which turned into referendum turned out to be good elections. Once we had referendum about dictatorship and democracy, and the time we had referendum about secularism and majoritarian democracy. Both times Indian voter emerged in bright colors for their wisdom, and everybody was surprised because no calculation was predicting that kind of mandate. But yes, we want to have both the common sense experience and the expertise. We don't want to miss the jungle for the trees, and we don't want to ignore the trees for the jungle.